Welcome, I'm Jon Caldara, president of the Independence Institute and your devil's advocate. Later on, we're going to talk about Governor Polis's reassurance program. But first, you know her, you love her, sometimes you see her on other shows. What a tramp. Patty Calhoun.
Thanks for having me on this respectable show.
No. You just go from show to show.
I do. That's all I do all day.
You're a talk show harlot.
Yes, I've been called worse.
by me. All right. Let's jump into the article you've been working on Rocky Flats. I remember living in Boulder way back when they would like to circle Rocky Flats with their hands. Remember this? Because they wanted to close Rocky Flats, which made, if I'm remembering right, the plutonium triggers for nuclear bombs.
For the entire nation's nuclear arsenal, plutonium triggers, right?
That is really cool.
For like 30 years. Well, depending. Cool for a while and then always, always hot. And that is the big issue now.
Hot. So much so that Boulder declared itself a nuclear-free zone and no atomic weapons are allowed inside Boulder.
Well, Boulder,
so people have to now drive around when they're driving their terrorist bombs.
Well, Boulder will destroy itself from within. It doesn't need nuclear weapons.
What closed Rocky Flats to begin with?
Well, the interesting thing is when those protests were going on in, '78, and Daniel Ellsberg was there, mostly they were protesting nuclear weapons. They weren't worried about the environment. They worried about nuclear weapons. Basically, the end of the Cold War is what closed Rocky Flats.
It was also a big anti-Reagan vibe. Since Reagan was building up the military, it was in Boulder's backyard. It gave them something to rally around. I don't remember them ever saying this is unsafe, except it was all about the arms race.
There were some complaints about the environment, and of course, those are the ones that live on now. In 1989, the FBI raided Rocky Flats because of alleged environmental crimes. That was in June of '89.
Really?
Grand jury was brought out. Oh, what, you were in diapers? You don't remember this? So in 1989, Colorado's first ever special grand jury was called to look into all the allegations. Those poor guys met for 2 solid years, wanted to indict 8 individuals. Instead, the Justice Department sealed a deal, charged Rockwell International with a fine that was less than they'd gotten as a bonus for running the plant, and no one was ever indicted.
And so Rockwell, did they run the plant?
They were the second operators of the plant. First it was Dow Chemical, which pretty much ran it from '52 when it started until the '70s. Then Rockwell International took over. And
without Rocky Flats, we could have no other bombs, because didn't they create the bomb that set off the big bomb? Wasn't that the idea? Those were the triggers. They were the triggers. I mean, it wasn't until '52 that started, so there had been triggers made in other places. And now they're actually talking about moving some of the functions of Rocky Flats, which hasn't made bombs since '89, down to Los Alamos. Where do we make our triggers now? Don't tell me we're bombless.
Well, we have some leftover bombs. They're not at Rocky Flats, as far as we know. But the residue of the bombs is. It was such a cause célèbre to close it down. So was it the suit against Rockwell that ended up closing down Rocky Flats? A lot of what it was what they found there. I mean, they definitely found, if not actually anything they could indict a person for, they found they didn't find missing plutonium. They found there was plutonium missing, like two tons of it. A lot of plutonium missing, and plutonium is not a very healthy thing. But also with the Cold War, you didn't need any more weapons right now. So by the end of '89, Rocky Flats was done. It became a Superfund site. And then there was a 10-year cleanup. EPA Superfund site. Most importantly, driving by Rocky Flats, you'd always drive by this one rickety old bar, which is called the Rocky Flats Lounge. Well, now it's the Rocky Flats Bar and Grill. All right. But the Rocky Flats Lounge was, how to put it, Homer Simpson works at the power plant and then goes to Moe's. It's Moe's right across the street. It is an excellent bar, I have to say, and it's the old payroll office for Rocky Flats. They moved it across the street, so it's the old payroll office. Turned it into a bar, became a big Packers bar, fish fries on Friday. Then, unfortunately, the place itself fried about 4 years ago, and it just now has reopened. But did it fry and then they closed it? I mean, was that why they closed it? Or? Well, it burned down, yes. All right. So now they've kind of rebuilt it. A restaurant that burns down. Who knew? Who knew? Who knew? No plutonium, as far as we know. And Packers all the time. I mean, you had to be a Packers fan if you went there. Well, I went there, and I'm not a Packers fan. You could go there; they would allow you in. But there was a special section for non-Packer fans. Just kind of like at Independence Institute. If you're a liberal, you seat people elsewhere. We got a viewing area, bulletproof. That's good. It's open again. The bar is open. Although they have no liquor at the moment, but that's a different story.
Well, when they open, you and me.
Got it.
All right. Back to the story. So what happened after it was a Superfund site? They needed to clean it up, and this is a huge amount of land on one of the few areas where there isn't any building, there isn't any growth there, so it's just been held. This is a valuable hunk of land between Boulder and Golden.
And it is a beautiful, beautiful area. When Rocky Flats was put there, it was just maybe a couple ranches. That's all that was there. But it's rolling foothills. It is now the Rocky Flats National Wildlife Refuge. So it opened a year ago, September. And there are trails there. The trails do not go, however, in the inner 1,300 acres, which is where the bombs were really made. A lot of that debris is buried underground, and that's off limits. You cannot go there, but otherwise it's over 5,000 acres of trails, which you traverse at your own peril.
Really? I've heard it was perfectly safe. The EPA said, come on, walk on our land. And just recently they found one hot spot.
Right.
Tell me about this.
So, well, I have to say, I've walked over it, and I don't think I'm glowing unless it's in your presence.
You are glowing. You always glow.
But you see that Candelas, for example, the development has gone right up to the back of Rocky Flats on the southern edge. So people are concerned a little bit about what kind of health issues might come up from blowing dust. So families and activists have been demanding more tests. This summer, there were tests done by Fish and Wildlife, which runs the place. Those results aren't out yet. But there were also tests done because of the Jefferson Parkway, which is proposed to go along the east edge on Indiana Street. And that's part of the Beltway around Denver.
Right, so for historical reference, Denver is the only city of its size that doesn't have at least one Beltway around it. And we can thank Governor Dick Lamb, who put a silver spike in the plan to do C-470, and so it had to be built later. That 1/4 of it that's still not complete is basically from Boulder to Golden. So right. C-470
kind of designed to inconvenience you.
Exactly. I am inconvenienced.
So they were doing, the Jefferson Parkway Authority was doing 250 tests this summer of soil samples right outside Rocky Flats, and 1 out of the 250 came back hot. But it came back very hot, 5 times the acceptable level. So now things are being retested.
1 out of 250.
Well, it only takes 1.
You know, I can see somebody who just hates roads planting uranium down there and go, just test over here.
You know, I don't know that many people who wander around with uranium and plutonium.
You don't hang around with the people I know.
Well, that's good.
Actually,
that's good.
Actually, you do.
I do.
Sadly. I'm trying to get a picture of the land. Was a parkway going to go through this wildlife refuge?
Parkway was going right along the east side, so okay. Indiana Street.
Right.
So down there, and then it would cut over to Golden.
So is there never going to be any building on the refuge area, on this cleanup site? Is it now just going to be open space for the rest of eternity, or?
As long as people remember, that's what it's supposed to be. There's going to be a visitor center on the north end. That hasn't been built yet. The inner 1,300 acres, no one's ever allowed to go there.
Is it hot? I mean, in that area where the buildings were, so is that radioactive? Is it dangerous?
They say not, but the problem is, you know, there are the burrowing, now they're worried about prairie dogs burrowing and water seepage, but that was the hottest area of Rocky Flats. That's where most of the manufacturing went on. They've buried some of the building rubble, so they just say that shouldn't be a wildlife refuge.
Are they worried about the rodents because they're going to go down, get radioactive by burying themselves where the waste is, and then coming up and
come up and go to a fish concert like they did at Rocky Mountain Arsenal?
Exactly. That's awesome.
Yeah, it was awesome.
All right. Where does this end? What's the next step?
Well, the next step is 2 lawsuits still outstanding. One is that one group wants to have the grand jury's secret documents revealed because they show documents from the actual time. Oh,
You would love that.
Do love it. In fact, I've asked
Any reporter would love it.
Well, and what's interesting is the Justice Department says we lost them. So 60 boxes of documents from the grand jury's secret deliberations are lost.
That's very convenient.
It is very convenient.
Much like the bar burning down. Very convenient.
Very convenient. Actually a little more inconvenient than the bar burning down, but so that's one thing.
Somehow they can get your tax returns from 1982, but they can't find this.
They've just lost them. We don't know where they are. So that's one of the issues. The other issue is another one that says we want the refuge closed down. We want more study of the prairie dogs, the other issues, just how hot is this area. But it's come up again, not even before the test, because of the Chernobyl HBO series, which I haven't seen yet. But one of my reporters, who wasn't born when the Rocky Flats raid went on, said, was Rocky Flats like Chernobyl? And I said,
oh
no.
My God.
Because it wasn't a nuclear power plant in the first place. But then I'm like, I guess I really have to go write this again, this story that I thought I was done writing 30 years ago.
So you got to pick it back up.
To remind people what Rocky Flats actually was. And that's the biggest issue with the refuge. 100 years from now, when Denver is sprawling to Nebraska, will people remember why no one wants to build houses on Rocky Flats?
My guess is yes, because people freak out about that stuff.
Plutonium and memories last forever.
But it's this weird thing of plutonium, but the memories are these wonderful hippy-dippy memories of singing, chanting, and linking arms all the way around Rocky Flats, which they never really did. It was like Boulder's version of Hands Across America. It never really happened. It was their million-man march. It was like, oh, along the highway they did it, and then who has time for this stuff?
Well, it was 1978. I mean, you couldn't watch Netflix.
That's a good point. You've got to watch Chernobyl. It was one of the best shows, and it's one of the few that make the Soviets look like incompetent boobs, and it comes out of Hollywood. I didn't know that was possible.
Who knew? Well, I will watch it, but as I said, my writer, he thought that was Rocky Flats, and it was not.
How's the paper doing?
Paper's doing okay. I've left it for this afternoon, so we assume everyone is still working. Yes, it'll be back. Roberts is, a machine. He's writing his stories.
When you're gone, who's in charge? In other words, who pours the liquor?
Oh, I think people are capable of pouring their own liquor there. And the other thing is, journalists in general, they just want to tell stories. So even if their boss is not there, they're going to want to tell stories. Probably more so than when I'm there and I'm going to edit them more heavily.
You told me before that online is kicking ass on Westword. It's one of the few papers where online is actually getting revenues and growing substantially, more so than what you do in paper.
Well, probably 10 times as many stories we publish online as in the paper itself. And the paper's still doing okay in print, but because we were always free, being free online wasn't scary to us, and selling ads online wasn't scary to us because we had to sell ads for a free paper.
Right. Mm-hmm. If pot wasn't legal in this state, what would Westword be doing? We
would be putting in more hooker ads for you.
I appreciate it. I miss those days. Patty, thanks for everything.
My pleasure.
And stop doing that other show. We could do this every week. What, do they pay you more?
Oh, yeah. I'm sure they do exponentially
More. Stay tuned.